Hey there riders, Moto Journo Kris here today, and it's happened. Unfortunately, I put the Oggy Knobbs to the test. It was something really stupid I did that I should know better after riding as long as I have. However, I made the mistake, and luckily I had the Oggy Knobbs fitted to the Svartpilen 401. So I thought I'd just take you through kind of the damage that has been done to the bike from a simple drop in a car park, not dissimilar to this. A bit more gravelly, so the surface was perhaps a little bit softer than kind of the bitumen. However, the bike went down, and as you can possibly see from that distance, we've obviously scratched up the Oggy knob, and these are a replaceable puck, so if you want your bike looking really like tip-top, you should be able to just get a replacement puck from Kenmar. Now, as far as the actual damage to the bike, there's nothing, seriously damaged here. The bike is still totally functional, which is really good. That's the main thing. You always want to be able to ride away from any issue like that. The bar lever, I should say, the bar end is scratched. The mirror, not really touched. The lever, which has a little break-off point, just a little way down from the end of the lever, it broke off where it's meant to prevent additional damage or losing the whole lever, in which case you're pretty stuck because you wouldn't have a front brake on this side. So that snapped off, so that's unfortunate, but not unexpected. Some hand grip protectors, like some bark busters or something like that, would have solved that particular issue, but I haven't really gotten around to checking whether I can fit those. On the back of the bike, as you can see here, the exhaust cover has been scratched up a little bit. So again, really not a huge concern because that's just an exhaust cover. Of course, I am going to be putting on the mid-delete pipe and keeping the stock exhaust, so it's going to look a little bit scratched up. However, I figure with this bike, it's kind of good having it in the rough condition because it means I worry a little bit less if I want to go along some trails and drop it or anything like that. Now, as far as other damage, which could have been a little bit more catastrophic, what I did notice is that while this folded up and obviously the little knob there took the brunt of that impact, the part that couldn't move was this brake lever, and it was actually just pushed in a little bit and it had jammed against it. It has a retaining bolt there so that the brake lever doesn't push up too far, and that had just kind of pushed it in enough that it had locked it in place, and it took me about 100 meters down the road to realize what was going on. Gave it a bit of a swift kick, it released, and it was all good, and all I had to do was kind of tighten that bolt when I got home, and was all good. So as far as, I guess you'd say, like the level of damage to the bike, I think I got off pretty light. Obviously, car park drops are a best case situation. If you are gonna, drop or crash, you'd probably prefer to drop it in a car park somewhere. Still very embarrassing, but the damage is somewhat limited, and obviously the forces on the bike, it's just the weight of the bike itself. Now, as you can see here, obviously that stopped the radiator from getting damaged because that may have been a possibility depending on how the bars turned. Probably stopped a little bit of indicator damage there as well. It did mean that the engine cases, no issues there whatsoever. So I'm pretty happy with the level of protection that those Oggy Knobbs have provided on the Svartpilen 401. Definitely would recommend those. It hasn't stopped the damage entirely, but it's done a really, really good job. I think all I'd really be up for, new lever and maybe an exhaust cover if you really want to keep the bike looking tip-top, which, as I said, I'm not that fussed about. And you could probably find a stock exhaust real cheap online. They normally sell for almost nothing because most people don't want them. As far as how I did this, real dumb. So one thing I've been noticing when I've been taking my sister out for the riding lessons is that on the KTM 390, even with it lowered, she does struggle at times to basically reverse the bike out of a spot. And so the obvious advice I've been giving is ride into the spot and point your nose out so you just ride out. That's the best case scenario. However, what had happened is we'd pulled over in a gravel car park, and I was actually on the 401 and she was on the Ninja 400. So she wasn't on the 390 Adventure. She was on a much smaller and I wouldn't say lighter bike, but an easier bike to manage because the seat height is a lot lower. It's a lot easier to paddle back with your feet. And honestly, wisdom of motorcycling, if you can move the bike around sitting on the bike, it's generally going to be safer than walking it. But I said to her, look, I'm just going to walk the bike back out of the spot. I obviously was holding the bars and I just allowed the bike to get that little bit too far away from me. And at that point, there's really nothing you can do. It's, you know, me weighing 70, 75 kilos versus a bike weighing, I don't know, 150, 160 with fuel. And certainly there's no way that I'm gonna be able to stop the bike falling over this way when I'm standing on the other side of the bike. Simple way to fix that is obviously keep the bike more lent into you. However, this machine is so light, I think I've become kind of a little bit, you know, a little bit blasé about moving the bike around, where I should be a little bit more careful because it'll certainly come and bite you. The overconfidence thing is terrible, and when these things happen, it's always a good sign to go back to the basics and go, what have I not been doing too well that I should probably re-implement in my riding? Anyway, so that's a look. How effective the Oggy Knobbs are, like I said, really good. Damage to the Svartpilen, fairly limited. Lever, exhaust cover. Apart from that, I think we're good to go. I do have some crappy AliExpress levers on the way. They've been on their way for 6 weeks, so I think I'll probably just try and find or order a replacement stock lever. I've got to find out how much it is, and Moto Hub is probably going to be the place I'll go for that, because obviously they can get me the genuine Husqvarna parts. And I'll be updating you soon on next step on the bike.